After a weekend of escalating tensions between the US, Israel, and Iran, and with transit through the Strait of Hormuz now stalled, markets are on edge. Oil has surged, shipping risk has risen, and attention is turning to what this means beyond energy. I'm Johanna Bota, and joining us to analyze how these tensions are filtering into the grains and oilseeds markets is Bertrand Oesterle, VP of Clearing and Execution Sales at StoneX. Welcome back, Bert.
Good afternoon, Joanna.
Good afternoon for some. Over the weekend, the U.S. and Israel launched a military operation against Iran. How are grains and oilseeds impacted by the current Middle East tensions?
So our grains and oilseed markets are indirectly impacted in the sense that the first reaction is on the energy side with the massive surge on energy prices, and naturally because of the link between grains and oilseeds and the energy markets through biofuel, we are likely to follow the spillover support. However, it's not just about that link, but it's also, as you mentioned in your introduction, the Strait of Hormuz, and that strait is very important for the fertilizer world, and I guess Josh has given you some information about this already. And we have to put Iran in context. It's the third world exporter of urea and the world's seventh exporter of ammonia. So anything that happens on that side will affect the fertilizers, will indirectly impact grains and oilseeds eventually.
So you had a pretty busy morning this morning with the markets. Tell me, how have they reacted so far?
So when we first walked in, the two markets that really reacted to the surge in the energy markets were soybean oil and rapeseed. So very much those two that are directly correlated to the biofuel market. So soybean oil, as I walked into the room, was about 1.5 higher. Then when we look at rapeseed gapped straight away higher. So there's a technical gap, a hole between last Friday's session and this morning's start of 488 to 492 and a quarter basis May. The market went very quickly much higher, so we touched 501 as a high, and as I walked into the room, 493 and a quarter. So it's very volatile in that sense. Then when we look at wheat, corn and soybean, the reaction was not all that we expected. Initially people thought that that's it, energy goes up, grains and oilseeds are going to go generally up, but Paris wheat, Chicago wheat, Chicago corn, Chicago soybean were touch up this morning. As US participants and North American participants came to the office, we started to see a correction. And as I walked in, Paris wheat was a touch lower, Chicago wheat was some 10 cents lower, corn 6 cents lower, soybean 6 cents lower. So a correction generally from the little support we had this morning. And we've got to try to make sense of it. And it's about whether the market is taking the impression that the consumption is going to be affected in the Middle East, and therefore prices should be affected lower. So at present, it's a little bit of that difficulty between knowing who to follow. Do we follow just the energy prices, or do we follow what impact it could have on consumption, generally speaking?
Well, even if grain shipments themselves haven't been directly disrupted, which is what we just talked about, are markets starting to build risk premium because of the wider uncertainty around energy, like you said, and shipping, and how long this war may last?
I think that's the main point. It's what is the length of this conflict and how much it's going to perdure and how much it's going to affect the market overall. If it's a matter of days and weeks, it will quickly come back to normal, if normal ever comes back. But if it lasts for months, then it could have a wider impact, especially when we consider the fertilizer. So for spring planting, the fertilizer issue is probably not there. The fertilizer is available. But if the conflict perdures for months on end, then what impact is it going to have for the winter crop?
Yeah. Okay. Anything else worth noting that has nothing to do with the US, Iran, and Israel?
So there's been two elements to think about. First of all, the Russians have reported that Ukraine has attacked Novozorsk. So Novozorsk is the largest deep sea port from Russia on the Black Sea. We hear that it is energy facilities that have been hit, but it is a major port for grains and oilseeds. So we'll have to see if it affects grain and oilseed shipments. And the other bit, which is not necessarily related to grains and oilseeds, but is very much impacted by what's going on, is salmon. The salmon air traffic from Norway or the European producers to the Middle East or to Asia have completely come to a halt. So it is an absolute disaster for exporters who have to keep their salmon in Europe, and it is a major difficulty for the Middle East, Korea or China, and we hear that Chinese prices are actually going up. And the reverse question is, what are European producers going to do with the salmon they can't ship?
Ripple effects all the way to salmon. Bert,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for giving us this time in such short notice. And thank you so much to our viewers for watching. For more financial content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.